The first time I saw her, I thought it was a joke. My best friend had begged me to show up to the cafe for a blind date surprise, promising me that this girl was different. I walked in late, irritated, rehearsing an excuse to leave within 10 minutes. Then I saw her by the window, fragile, still, her right hand resting lifelessly on her lap, her wheelchair angled toward the sunlight as if she were trying to borrow warmth from it. And in that moment, I realized I had been tricked. Not into a fun surprise. Not into a quirky setup. But into something I didn't think I was strong enough to handle. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and seeing beyond appearances, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be heard. I stood there frozen, guilt and irritation battling inside me. I hated that my first emotion wasn't compassion. It was fear. Fear of responsibility. Fear of emotional burden. Fear of being judged for walking away. My friend had conveniently disappeared, leaving me alone with a choice that felt heavier than it should have. She noticed me staring and gave a small, knowing smile. It wasn't shy. It wasn't hopeful. It was guarded, as if she'd seen that look before, the flicker of surprise, the flash of pity, the quick mental calculation of whether she was worth it. I almost left. Instead, I walked over and sat down. Her name was Alina. She was 26. A car accident 2 years earlier had left the right side of her body partially paralyzed. She could speak clearly, think sharply, and laugh easily, but her arm and leg responded sluggishly, as if disconnected from the rhythm of the world. She told me this plainly, without dramatics, as if reading a weather report. I listened, nodding, pretending I hadn't been ambushed into this. My friend had told me she was funny and smart, not that she had spent months in rehabilitation, not that she moved through life at half speed while the rest of us ran. For the first half hour, I was polite but distant. I asked safe questions. Work, hobbies, favorite movies. She answered with surprising wit, teasing me when I tried too hard to sound impressive. Slowly, I forgot about the wheelchair. I forgot about the stiffness in her fingers. I found myself laughing, and that scared me more than anything. When the date ended, I walked her outside. The sidewalk was uneven, and I instinctively reached to push her chair. She hesitated, then allowed it. I could feel the tension in her shoulders, not from weakness but from pride. At her car, specially modified for her needs, she looked up at me and said quietly that I didn't have to stay if this was pity. The words hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. Part of me was staying because I didn't want to look like the villain who abandoned the half-paralyzed girl. I didn't want to confirm the worst fear she probably carried, that no one would choose her freely. I went home that night restless. Angry at my friend for setting me up. Angry at myself for my shallow hesitation. I had dated women who were emotionally unavailable, dramatic, manipulative. Yet the idea of dating someone physically limited felt overwhelming. What did that say about me? Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not the wheelchair. Not the injury. Her eyes. Sharp and observant. The way she had deflected sympathy like an expert fencer. The quiet strength it must have taken to sit across from a stranger, knowing he hadn't signed up for this. I texted her. Our second meeting was different. This time, I went because I wanted to. No ambush. No trick. We walked, or rather, she rolled and I matched. Her pace, through a small park near her apartment. Children ran past us. Couples jogged. Life moved fast around her, but she didn't rush. She had learned to exist in her own rhythm. She told me about the accident in fragments. A rainy night. A truck that ran a red light. Months of hospitals. The crushing moment doctors explained that partial recovery might be the best outcome. Friends who slowly stopped visiting. A fiancé who tried to stay but couldn't handle the future he hadn't imagined. That part stung me unexpectedly. Not because I was jealous, but because I saw how abandonment had carved invisible lines into her. She never cried while telling it. She simply described the facts. But I could feel the grief underneath, like a current below calm water. As weeks passed, we developed a strange, beautiful normal. I helped her carry groceries. She mocked my terrible cooking attempts. I learned how to fold her wheelchair into my trunk. She learned that I hated being praised for basic decency. Still, doubt lingered inside me. Late at night, I would imagine the future. What if her condition worsened? What if I became her caretaker instead of her partner? What would my parents say? What would my friends whisper? Those thoughts made me feel small. One evening, everything cracked. We were at a crowded restaurant celebrating her promotion. She worked remotely as a graphic designer and had just landed a major client. As I helped her navigate between tightly packed tables, I noticed the stares. Some curious, some sympathetic, some subtly judgmental, as if I were either a saint or a fool. Halfway through dinner, a waiter accidentally bumped her chair. Her glass spilled, soaking her dress. She tried to reach for a napkin with her weaker hand, struggling. I instinctively jumped up to help, but she stopped me with a look, not angry, but wounded. In the car afterward, silence hung heavy. Then she said it again. I didn't have to stay if it was pity. This time, her voice trembled. She told me she could handle strangers, stares. She could handle physical therapy. She could handle waking up every morning to a body that didn't fully cooperate. But she could not survive being someone's charity project. Her words forced me to confront myself fully. Was I there because I admired her strength, her intelligence, her humor? Or because leaving would make me feel cruel? That night, I didn't answer immediately. I drove her home. I carried her bag upstairs. At her door, she didn't invite me in. I went home and sat alone in the dark. I thought about the life I'd imagined for myself, easy, uncomplicated, socially approved. Then I thought about the way she looked when she designed something beautiful, her face glowing with pride. I thought about how she challenged me, how she refused to let me patronize her. I thought about how, despite everything, she still believed in love enough to risk dating again. The next morning, I showed up at her apartment unannounced. I told her I had been scared. Not of her, of myself, of whether I was strong enough, honest enough, mature enough. I admitted that at first, yes, there had been pity tangled in my feelings. But somewhere between our park walks and our late-night phone calls, that pity had dissolved into something steadier. Something that didn't feel heroic. It felt ordinary, in the best way. I didn't want to save her. I wanted to build a life with her. Tears filled her eyes then, not dramatic sobbing, just quiet release. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean into me fully. Not as someone bracing for abandonment, but as someone willing to trust. Loving her was not always cinematic. It was messy. There were hospital checkups that left us drained. There were days her muscles refused cooperation, and frustration consumed her. There were moments I lost patience and hated myself for it. But there were also victories. The first time she managed to climb 3 stairs with minimal assistance. The night we danced clumsily in our living room, her stronger hand gripping my shoulder while I steadied her waist. People still stared sometimes. Some praised me as if I deserved a medal. I learned to shrug it off. The truth was simpler. She wasn't a burden. She was my partner. Months turned into a year. Our love deepened in quiet ways, shared routines, inside jokes, the comfort of knowing that staying was no longer a question. It was a decision renewed daily. One evening, as we watched the sunset from her balcony, she rested her head against my chest and whispered that for the first time since the accident, she no longer felt broken. And I realized something profound. I hadn't been tricked into dating a half-paralyzed girl. I had been tricked into confronting my own shallow fears. Into growing up. Into understanding that love isn't about choosing the easiest path, it's about choosing the person who makes the path meaningful. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps these stories reach people who need to believe that love can exist beyond limitations. And before we close, I have a special request. Comment the word choose if you believe love is a choice we make every day, not just a feeling. Years later, when I proposed to her in that same park where we once rolled side by side at mismatched speeds, she laughed through tears and said yes before I finished asking. There were no fireworks. No grand spectacle, just 2 imperfect people deciding, fully aware of the challenges ahead, that staying was worth it. On our wedding day, she walked, slowly, carefully, leaning slightly on a silver cane, down the aisle. Every step was deliberate. Every step defied the night that had almost taken everything from her. When she reached me, I didn't see a half-paralyzed woman. I saw the bravest person I knew. And as I held her hands, I understood that love had never been about pity. It had been about courage, hers first, then mine. If this story moved you even a little, don't scroll away silently. Engage with it, share your thoughts. Because somewhere out there, someone feels unchosen, unworthy, or too broken to be loved. And maybe this story can remind them that the right person won't stay out of pity. They'll stay out of choice.